Hi, and welcome back to Becca Babbles podcast. I'm your host, Becca. I'm a certified personal trainer, holistic health coach, and future chiropractor on my way to figuring out this thing we called life. Now, let's get babbling. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Becca Babbles podcast. Today, I have a special guest with me, Amanda Montalvo. I'm so excited to have Amanda on the podcast. If you guys have listened to my PCOS story and my journey going along through that and all those episodes, you know that I have been waiting to have Amanda on the show, just because she's impacted my healing journey a lot, not only with my PCOS, but also just thoughts around food and changing my perspective with food. So I'm excited for you guys to listen to the conversation that we had together. We dived into all things like her healing journey from being a CrossFitter with PMS and then being diagnosed with PCOS and hypothyroidism to then discovering functional testing and how hair mineral testing and minerals can actually impact your health. My favorite part about this episode, though, is we get into the nitty-gritty of the science of everything, which you know I love, but it's one of those episodes where, yes, we talk about diagnoses and the struggles of having things like PMS, dealing with fertility issues, and dealing with PCOS and hypothyroidism. But there's also a lot of hope and ambition in this episode. I asked her questions about how she built her business and dealing with all of these health issues. And as someone who is a very ambitious person, sometimes I have these questions of, can I heal and build a business at the same time? And she helps answer those questions. If you want to know a little bit more about Amanda, Amanda is a women's health dietitian and the founder of the Hormone Healing RD. After her own struggles with PCOS, hypothyroidism, and acne, she has discovered minerals and functional testing, which has completely changed her health. Since then, Amanda has helped over 4,000 women understand their bodies, balance their hormones, and finally feel like themselves again through her Master Your Minerals course and one-on-one coaching. I'll make sure to link in the description below all of her courses and ways to get in contacted with her. But I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this episode. It's probably one of my favorites. Let's jump into it, and I can't wait to babble with you next time. You've been super open about your journey with CrossFit and PMS. I'm kind of curious what that season of life was like for you and how that made you dig deeper into your health.
Yeah, and it feels so long ago now. It's so funny when I think about it. It's like over 10 years ago, probably. And it was hard because there was like a lot of cognitive dissonance happening where I know how important it is to fuel the body. I was a dietitian and I was like really focusing on sports nutrition at the time. That's what I thought was gonna be like my major focus. But I still definitely had a lot of like body image issues that followed me from high school. I just think it takes time to kind of get out of that, like as you get older and like build that confidence. And yeah, I was definitely under fueling while I was way overtraining. And it's so funny because now CrossFitters train even more than what I was training. And I'm like, man, how does anyone even survive this now? I like competitive CrossFitters, right? So
Mhm.
it was a challenging time. And it's kind of like, well, I wonder why I'm not recovering as well. And I look back now, I'm like, obviously it's because I wasn't fueling myself enough. Now, I was definitely eating, like if someone looked at my food, they would not say she's under eating, but for being an athlete that was training like 2 to 3 hours a day, I was definitely under eating. And it started to really show up. I always struggle with PMS and like hormone issues really from when I first got my period. And I was only like 10. I went through puberty very, very early. And I've definitely had estrogen dominance my whole life. I look back now and I'm like, okay, I developed very early, got my period very early. I definitely was estrogen dominant from a very young age. And that was like the theme. And your hormones are going to be more erratic when you're younger. It's normal to have that happen and to have your cycles be a little more erratic, but like really bad cramping and heavy periods from literally the very first one. And that kind of like followed me, acne, all the things. So I definitely already had hormone imbalances. And then you add in going to college, I was on a sports team and in dietetic school. And then I've just kind of always been overdoing it. Was kind of how I look at it. Just always kind of overdoing it. You can get away with a lot when you're younger, but still. And my hormones just kept getting worse, especially as I decided to come off birth control. I was like 20 and a half. Like wasn't quite 21, but it was like the fall of when I turned 20. And that's when it really hit, because birth control covered up a lot. It masked a lot of my symptoms. I still had acne, I still had painful periods, but they were not nearly as bad with birth control. And so I decided to come off because I was like, I'm making all these healthy choices. Why am I taking this medication? And when I realized I wasn't ovulating and there was like a higher breast cancer and cancer risk in general, I have a very long family history of that. I was like, I'm coming off. And then that's when it really hit me. I was like, man, really painful periods, extremely heavy. My PMS, so I felt like a different person that second half of my cycle. But when I first came off, I didn't even get my period for a while. So I was kind of in this like hormonal chaos when I kind of think back about it. And I felt like no one could really help me. My doctor was like, just go back on the pill. What's wrong with you? What are you torturing yourself for? And got diagnosed with PCOS, and which I probably had for a very long time, and hypothyroidism. Even though I may have appeared healthy on the outside, I definitely was not. And my hormones were like even more out of balance just from masking, going to like unmasking, super stressed, under eating, overtraining, very stressed. And I think of all like the crazy blue light exposure, staying up till super late studying, getting up for 4 a.m. rowing practice. It was just like a terrible combination.
Oh my goodness. So you were doing rowing and CrossFit at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
Very
goodness.
healthy, right? Super healthy.
For sure. You had mentioned that you decided to come off of hormonal birth control because you're like, I'm eating healthy, like I don't feel like I need to be like on this anymore. What like can you dig deeper into why you decided to come off of birth control?
It was mostly because I learned how it was working. Because I was like, okay, I'm taking this prescription medicine every day. I should probably know what it's doing to my body. And I started to research it because it's interesting. They don't really tell you. They're just like, this is going to prevent conception, which was my goal at the time. And so I looked more into it, and I'm like, okay, it was something in school that prompted me because we were learning about the menstrual cycle. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I'm going to look more into that. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not ovulating, which it sounds stupid, but I really didn't know. And this was also like over like 15 years ago when we didn't have Instagram, people like talking about this stuff, like I took the pill. It was a solution to my problem. And I don't necessarily regret it. It did its job. I didn't get pregnant at a very young age. Right. So, but I was also like, I have a very high risk of I have a high family history of breast cancer and different types of cancer. And I was like, I don't want to increase my risk of that. And so I decided to come off, and I got a copper IUD, which also wasn't super great. But I felt like it was a better option than the pill for me at the time. And it was more just like an awareness of how it works in the body. I wanted to ovulate. I knew I wanted to have kids one day. And I already suspected that I had hormone issues between like my insanely painful, heavy periods, sometimes irregular, and then the acne and everything. I was just like, I want to give myself like the best chance for fertility in the future, which looking back now, I'm like, oh, that's so funny because I was so young, but that was kind of my thought process.
Yeah. For the girl who's like, she's like, I don't really care about like having kids right now, like maybe in the future that's a problem. Why is ovulation so important?
It's so critical because it's how your body produces hormones. And that's really what we're shutting down when we take something like hormonal birth control. And it's essentially just stopping ovulation, and your hormones are really pretty low, but you're still getting this exogenous source of synthetic hormones, which are not the same. They don't even like, there's some estrogen and progesterone mixed pills, but they're like the synthetic, like progestin version. And then there's progestin only. And those really act more like androgens, like male hormones in the body, which is interesting. And so you're shutting off this process of ovulation. And it's also, I mean, you have this chronic low grade inflammation when you're taking those hormones too. So over time, that can lead to like insulin resistance. Not for everyone, but it's like, if you think about it, like for me in that instance, I was already super inflamed. I'm trying to like improve my health through my diet and lifestyle, and adding in this extra source of inflammation, I was like, this just doesn't make sense for me. But it's also like, I don't ever want someone to feel like birth control is bad, because, and I know it's just one of those things where if we were just taught about our bodies from a young age and learned fertility awareness, like I have 2 daughters. I'm definitely going to do that. I can't wait. I'm like so excited to do that. Like, you can prevent pregnancy, so it's obviously, they don't have, your prefrontal cortex isn't formed and everything yet, but so it's like, you still have to be careful. But overall, I just think it's like, there are other options, or to make an informed choice. Like, I didn't really understand what I was doing to my body, and I was on it for about 7 years. And I'm happy, honestly, that I came off when I did, because I have so many clients now that they've been on it for like 15 years, and they're like, yeah, I want to have a baby. And now they have like all these fertility issues. And it's just like, again, they could have had them before. I definitely had PCOS before, but it's masking it. So you don't get the chance to be like, oh, I have this condition. How could I support my body? How could I just like support egg quality and things like that? And it's just kind of this missing piece of the conversation. Or like, when I think of informed consent, it's just like, you have to look at the whole future, because now there's so many men and women struggling with fertility issues. And I'm like, if we were just more educated on this from a young age, rather than just being like, don't have sex or use birth control, it's like, there's no middle ground. And I very much am someone that I don't like extremes. I'm like, there's so much nuance in everything. And yeah, I think there's just better options now.
Yeah. It's almost like birth control has its place if you like understand what it's for. Like it's for like if you don't want to conceive, then like that's a great option if that's an option you want to take. But then like also if you're doing it to like mask symptoms like acne, like heavy painful periods and stuff like that, it's like that's not getting to the root cause of the situation you're dealing with.
Yes, and I was definitely not taking it for, I was taking it for my skin and my cycles very young. It's
Yeah.
not like I was taking it for the reason that you're supposed to take it. So that's kind of like the other piece of the puzzle, is it's often just given as a band-aid solution. Even, and it doesn't matter how old you are. I still get clients that are like in their mid to late 20s, and they're like, yeah, just go on birth control. They're like, I'm over that. I'm going to get married soon. I'm going to have kids soon. I want to figure out my health. And I just think it's not fair that you kind of have to wait, or be in like a huge advocate for yourself to kind of get past all those roadblocks within that conventional medicine model.
Yeah. Going back to like your story and how like coming off of hormonal birth control and then like dealing with like issues with PMS and then getting diagnosed with PCOS, how did you feel during the time being in nutrition school and struggling with your body?
It was hard, but I will be super honest. Most people in my program probably had eating disorders. And I don't know if you know that statistic. I forget what it is, but the amount of like dietitians that have eating disorders is incredibly high. So for me, I was like, I'm probably the healthiest person here, to be honest. I would say it was more like, again, like I was very lean for the most part, and like muscular, because I was training so much, and I was like 20. So it's much easier to like have that kind of muscle mass and stuff then. So I felt like a lot of it was hidden, and that felt harder for me, because people just kind of assumed that I was healthy. And then the more, it's interesting, especially as I got older, I'm out of school, I'm working at gyms as a dietitian and training, and everyone's suffering with these issues, and they've been like, all the women are, and they're like, yeah, I've been dealing with this forever, so I just like stay on birth control. Or like every time I, like one of my good friends from back in the day, she like, we trained in CrossFit together, and she's like, yeah, whenever I come off, I can only stay on birth control for like a year, and then I start to get really depressed, so then I come off for like 6 months, then I go back on. I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better solution
Yeah.
than this. And it was just the norm, unfortunately, for a lot of women. And I do feel like no one was really talking about hormone health back then. And like, if you talked about your period, you were weird. That's kind of like how the vibe was.
Do you think it's still that way or do you think it's getting better?
I think it's getting a lot better. Obviously, I'm very much in my own bubble
Mhm.
online, or maybe I just don't really care about talking about it. That can happen with age too. But I mean, like in like that gym setting, I do feel like it is more accepted. Like the guys don't care for the most part. It depends on like the gym you go to and stuff, but it's, I mean, even just in regular settings, like, I don't know. It seems like I just feel like our generation is just more open. Even I
Mhm.
just think of the dads and like parenting and like the most, not all dads, but most dads are like incredibly involved now, which was not, I mean, that's not how I grew up. I'm like, do I even know you? You know, so it's like who you've never around, you know, so it's like,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where I feel like the dynamics in so many different places are different and we're all just like much more aware of things,
Mhm.
where it just kind of depends. Like my husband, he was raised by a single mom, so he's like always been very open about talking about those things because that's what he grew up around. Because he's
Yeah.
just like, he's like, yeah, I had to go get tampons for my mom like all the time. Like it's very
That's awesome.
normal.
Yeah.
So it probably depends.
That's awesome. How did you had mentioned that yours was more internal struggle, like externally you looked great and stuff like that. How did that change your view on like what true health actually means?
Oh, it completely changed it. And I think too, like the more I work with clients too, because I don't know what it is. Like I always felt like I was definitely harsh on like my own body, but it's kind of like how everyone says, like, no one else is thinking about you. You
Mhm.
know, like you're so worried about yourself. Everyone's just worried about themselves. And like no one's really noticing you or your issues because they have their own stuff to worry about. But I also think the more that I worked with clients, I just saw, I'm like, you are perfectly you're not going to, a certain weight is never going to tell you what your health is. I do think it's a symptom. I'm not going to go so far to be like, your weight doesn't matter. Cause that would be like saying, to me, it's just like saying like some other symptom doesn't matter. And it's like, I personally think we should listen to any communication that our bodies are giving to us. And I do think that like your weight shifting up or down is one of those. But I think my mom, she very much like, she never dieted. She never talked about her body, which is so rare. And I do think that had a huge effect on me because I was like more concerned and obsessed with how I looked because my dad was more like that and I look just like my dad. And it was just like this thing where I'm like, okay, this matters. Like I'm witnessing that like how you look really does matter. But then as I got older, I was like, man, like it really doesn't. And it's such a teeny tiny part of your health story. Because I could have a client and they're not happy with their body. They're a little bit overweight, but we make some changes. We work on, maybe they're insulin resistant, have PCOS like I did, right? Because insulin resistance can look different on everyone. It doesn't always
Mhm.
just mean you're going to be overweight,
Yeah.
and have difficulty losing weight. So it's like, okay, we work on that and maybe they lose a little bit of weight, but not what they thought. So they're not like, oh, I thought when I reached this weight, that's when I'll be healthy. And it's like, nope, you lost a little bit, but you put on a little bit of muscle and all your labs are optimal and your energy is good, your sleep is good, you're not having cravings all the time. You can work out and not be exhausted, you're recovering well. It's like that is what true health is. It's not just in how you look. It's so much more in like how you feel. And I think when I was younger, that's kind of what I thought. It was just like, it's what you look like. That's the epitome of health. And then you're like, oh, when you lose that, when you lose how good you feel and all that is like gone, then you're like, oh, this is what health truly means,
Yeah. What besides someone looking at like health being a symptom of like their health, what other symptoms could people be recognizing of like, oh, these are signs that my body is telling me that like something isn't right?
Yeah, I think that energy is a huge, huge one. And it's one that we all tend to kind of notice. So it's like a good one to start with. Like, are you waking up feeling pretty good in the morning? And it's okay to be a slow starter. I think this is important. Like, everyone's going to be a little different depending on like their demeanor and everything, and like what time of day they prefer and stuff. But if you are waking up exhausted after getting plenty of sleep, I'm like, okay, this is a huge red flag, right? So that's telling me that your body is not recovering appropriately, doesn't have the tools that it needs to recover while sleeping, because sleep is like the most restorative thing that we can do. And then I also think about energy throughout the day, appetite, Are you hungry in the morning? Are you hungry throughout the day? Or are you someone that's like not hungry all day and then you want to eat a ton at nighttime? That tells me, okay, where is the circadian mismatch, right? Ideally, if we're thinking like our body is very connected to the light outside, and that's how everything runs, our hormones, digestive juices. Like if you're not waking up hungry, that makes me think, why is your digestion not turning on? Where is that mismatch there? And a lot of it's like light exposure, of course. I mean, we could talk about that literally forever. But that's like, you're not getting that good light exposure or something. So your circadian rhythm's off. So your appetite is not following that light. If your energy, same thing. So I think those are really good ones if you're craving food all the time. I mean, now all of these can also be related to like sleep, stress levels. If you're eating enough and eating like big enough meals, I get a lot of women that are like, yes, I never feel satisfied. But then I look at a food journal and I'm like, well, you're eating very little at each meal. So it makes sense that you're hungry all day versus like, oh my gosh, I have insulin resistance because I'm hungry all day. It's like you have to keep everything into context. And that's why I just get so exhausted by all the health information online. It's like I can't even look, honestly. I have to just like post my stuff, and like I look at some of my friends and then I'm like, I'm getting off, because it just creates panic in people. And so I hope that anyone listening is not like, oh my gosh, I fall into all these symptoms. It's like it's just your body trying to tell you something. And I think you don't even necessarily need someone to tell you why. If you just slow down and give yourself a little space to be like, what do I think this could be coming from? People can figure it out, or they can get really, really close.
Do you feel like, because do you know what the starvation experiment is? Have you read about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I have been diving into it a lot more, and a lot of times I just wonder if it's like females just are under eating, and that's most of their like where their symptoms are coming from. And I'm curious, from someone who's like seen many clients, like what's your take on that?
It's so I have 5 nutritionists that work with me now, and we do client rounds on Mondays, like all day. And it's so fun. It's my favorite part of my week. And so we're going through all our client cases, especially like when we're onboarding new clients. And we're like, yeah, I was looking at her food journal and she's just not eating enough. And I'm like, not that that's the only issue, right? Yeah. It's not. And we can get into some of the nuance. But I mean, it just kind of boggles my mind that I'm like, some people just don't know, like, right? But it's like, I'm like, how can, because then it's like, before we can really do anything, any testing or anything, we have to get you eating more, because everything else is not going to work as well. Under eating is a stress on your body. And we're always talking about, okay, how can we get you out of this chronic fight or flight state so that we can give your body space to heal? Our bodies are all designed to heal. They have so many amazing mechanisms. The more I learn about it, the more I'm like, I don't even need to do anything. I don't even know why I have a job, because the body will literally heal itself. But we have so many barriers in place, like chronically being stressed, and a huge one for women and honestly men. We do a lot of stuff with men in our fertility program. We used to only do the women and like make it optional for men, and we had to stop because I'm like, we have to make them do stuff because they also undereat. Like almost worse sometimes. I'm like, aren't you hungry? Like even like big guys. I'm like, I don't understand. And it's like, I think it's just common, but the pattern I see the most is like under eating and then overeating. I will say like kind of like just not a lack of consistency. And I think that is something that people kind of take for granted, or it just doesn't sound like a biohack. So they're like, I don't really care. But giving your body consistent routines and meals, they don't have to be the exact same time, but like having some consistency in your days. Our bodies love routines. They love rhythms. Think about our hormones. They run off of that based on our circadian rhythm. So when you have those routines for yourself, especially with food, that's another way to match up your hormones and your circadian rhythm to the light outside. Most people just focus on light, but like when you're eating is another great way to do that. And it also like strengthens digestive signaling. Your body knows it's coming. So it's going to get ready to eat that meal and break down that food well. And it's a great way to minimize unnecessary stress. Cause I did a post on this once and everyone was like, this is so like, a lot of people loved it. And a lot of people were just like, this is not true. Because I said that nourishment is one of the best stress reducers, in my opinion. And like feeding yourself, just feeding yourself enough food is one of the best ways you can reduce your stress. And I had all these like somatic coaches and stuff in there, like telling me that I'm wrong. And I'm just like, if you're under eating, it doesn't matter how much you meditate or how much therapy you do or anything, how much breath work or nervous system exercise you want to do, your body is still going to be stressed. So it's like, if we think of our health, like I always think of like a house kind of metaphor. If your house is burning down and you're like, I'm going to go clean this bathroom, it's like, it doesn't matter. The house is still going to burn down. So there's little things like that where I'm just like, I think this makes the most sense to focus on. But I do think a lot of women are under eating or just like not consistently feeding themselves, and then they overeat and then they're really frustrated. And this is a huge contributor because we get a lot of clients that are like, I believe that I'm overweight and I like at least like 30 to 50 pounds. And they're like, but no matter what I do, it's not coming off. And it's usually a long time of them like going back and forth, under eating and then overeating and then under eating and overeating. And it messes with your blood sugar and your leptin signaling. So your brain, it does not know how much energy you have stored anymore. And so that's why they keep consistently gaining weight. They're like, I'm not eating any more than I normally do. And I'm like, yes, but your body doesn't have the correct signaling now because it was so stressed out previously. Because one of the things that messes with that signaling is cortisol, that stress hormone, but also insulin, and excessive blue light exposure at nighttime. So it's basically like our body has all these cool mechanisms in place, but a lot of our like modern habits and environment just impede that.
Yeah. If someone is listening to this call right now and they're like, okay, I'm scared to eat more because I feel like I'm overweight right now, but you're telling me that I'm under eating. What's the like, how should they approach either eating more, or what's the first step that they should take?
Okay, so the first step with anything is always going to be working on your mindset, which sounds so lame and so woo-woo, but there's actually a ton of research on immunopsychology where our thoughts and our emotions and the way we speak to ourselves actually affects us on like a cellular level and our immune system. So I'm always thinking like, again, how can we tell the body that it's safe? And if we are constantly berating ourselves, or thinking like, I'm never going to be healthy or I'm never going to lose weight, whatever it might be, I'm never going to achieve XYZ, then even if you're not saying it out loud, even if you're just thinking it, it will have an effect on your body. It's very stressful versus positive emotions. They actually can support and increase our immune system. It's really neat. And so that is probably like my first thing that I always have people focus on is like, what are we shifting here? And it doesn't have to be like something that you think is unrealistic, because that's not going to help either. But just shifting the mindset of like, I usually have clients kind of work on like, how are you going to give your body the space to heal? It needs time. We don't get here overnight. We don't get out of here overnight. And it's definitely not like a perfect trajectory, right? The healing,
I
if it
wish
were
it
a
was.
graph, it'd be like up, down, it'd be like all scribbles until you then get to the top. And that is just your body recalibrating. And so I think it's important to know and be realistic with that of like, this is not going to go perfectly, and that's okay. And a lot of it's just like you're learning and your body's relearning. So that's just like a good mindset reframe to start. And then if people are nervous, I mean, I always start people with working on their light exposure, because I've had people lose weight just with that change, which I know people think is crazy, but I'm like, if you are insulin resistant, and you're under eating, also like the leptin piece, right? The amount of clients that I've had that are like 30, 50 pounds more overweight will test their leptin levels, because most people need to see it, right? They need to see what is actually out of balance. And they're like 50, 60. They're really high. Ideally, leptin is closer to like 8 to 10 in your follicular phase and like 11 to 15 in your luteal phase. And it's just a blood test you can get. You can ask your doctor. You could go to requestatest.com and get it. And it's basically telling you what your leptin levels are. When they're really high or really low, which can also happen when you're under eating, they can be very, very low. You're resistant. to that leptin hormone. And so that would tell me, hey, her brain is not getting the signaling to understand how much energy has stored in her body. And so that is what's leading to, it basically leads to like you craving a lot more food typically and storing a lot more energy. Basically everything you're eating is getting stored. And this is how you can eat the same amount of food or even eat less. Say you try to cut your calories, which I see this all the time because someone's still not losing weight and they're like, I'm overweight. Like I cannot keep gaining weight, which it's like, I understand like joints, like pain, mobility, being able to move around, all those things, it matters. But I'm like, you're still gonna conserve. And then when your body gets less, it's gonna be more stress. So the way you can switch that leptin and get it reset, one of the best ways is with light exposure. So getting that natural light in your eyes first thing in the morning. You don't have to go outside at sunrise. I mean, people are taking the circadian stuff, like it's very trendy right now and it's cool, but it doesn't have to be perfect to work. It really doesn't. Like when you get up before you turn a bunch of lights on in your house or pick up your phone and get that blue light in your eyes, just go get natural light in your eyes for like 2 or 3 minutes. You don't have to go out at sunrise and set your alarm clock and all this stuff. If you don't naturally wake up at that time, you just want to get morning light first. And then ideally you eat breakfast within like an hour of waking up. Because remember, that's also going to tell your body what time it is. And then really helpful for leptin. Usually, like if you do more like protein, fat, and like moderate carb, it doesn't have to be no carb, but more protein and fat that first thing is very helpful for leptin signaling in the morning time. So that's a good way to kind of start addressing it. Take light breaks if you can, get some natural light in your eyes. And people are always like, it's raining, or like it's raining right now. That's why I have this overhead light on. I usually don't. It's like, it's raining. Your eyes are still going to get the light signal. So that is something where it's really important to do that. And then at nighttime, block the artificial light. That's probably the other most important one, other than getting light in the morning and eating breakfast. Blocking blue light at night, that's going to, remember, if you're getting that blue light, it's going to lead to that cortisol release, that stress hormone release. And then that can interfere with the leptin attaching to your hypothalamus and communicating with your brain. So I think the light exposure is the other like really huge reason that so many women are struggling with leptin and like weight loss resistance, things like that. I just did a podcast episode on like PCOS and how we think leptin is like a huge part of it. And I really do. And then the other big thing at nighttime is blood sugar. So if your insulin is high and cortisol is high, then that leptin is not going to signal correctly to your brain. So if we think of, okay, we're going to turn the lights off or down or use like blue light blockers, these are daytime ones. You could get like the orange or the reds for nighttime, or just don't use screens. So many of my clients are like, yeah, I'm just like going to bed. I'm like, so you don't need to buy blue light blockers then, like it doesn't make sense. Then that's a really great way. But it doesn't mean you can't watch TV at night. Like if you want to watch some TV, then I'm like, put the blue blockers on and then turn all the other lights off in your house, or use lamps. That's what we like to do, is like, just keep not as bright of lights on. Salt lamps are great. They're going to have like more warm colors. And then we have like a little red light lamp that like it's not attached to anything, so we can like move it around if we need to with the kids and stuff at night. Because they're so funny, because my kids are like, that's a daytime light, like turn that off. They're very, they like the circadian rhythm rules. And then being mindful with food at nighttime. So it really depends on the person, because I have some women that do really well with a bedtime snack. It helps them stay asleep. They feel more rested in the morning. So I don't think that you can't do a bedtime snack, but if I have someone that, say they get their leptin tested, they're super leptin resistant, maybe they're like, I really need to lose weight, like I'm uncomfortable, it's affecting my health, then I would say really try to just do mostly protein and fat for your snack at nighttime, or see how you do with just eating more during daylight hours. That's personally what I like to do. I'm like, I just like to eat huge meals, 3 huge meals a day, usually 1 snack, and I sleep much better and feel better if I am not having too much food at night. But again, like I also have like the PCOS history, hypothyroid history, which while it's resolved, your body's definitely more sensitive to stressors and things like that. So like for me, that works really well. I also have plenty of clients that don't have to do that. So there's no like perfect prescription, but it works if you do it. And so that's why it's like, work on your light exposure, be mindful of your breakfast, and that alone, like if you eat a really big breakfast, that is a really great way to kind of like kickstart eating more food slowly. But the more light exposure you get, the more you're going to tolerate things like carbohydrates and stuff. So it's really great for, it's great for insulin resistance. It's great for the leptin signaling. And when you can correct that leptin, then you stop storing all that energy.
That's so interesting. Um, and I know, like, it almost sounds like you just need to be okay with experimenting with your body. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, maybe someone's like, "Okay, let's try this night snack and see if I, like, sleep better." Like, do it 3 times. In school right now, like, we always talk about how, like, you have to repeat something at least, like, 3 times for it to be, like, clinically
Yeah.
significant, and so it's like, test that on yourself. Be like a little scientist and be like, "Okay, let's do this 3 times because, like, one night it may be weird or different, and see if that nighttime snack works for you. If it doesn't, then, like, maybe try eating more at breakfast in the morning and, like, be curious about things."
Yeah, being curious, I think, is the most important. And it's so funny because I love that the try it 3 times. And then I'm like, but then to like throw in the cycle that women have and how your hormones shift throughout that. I'm like, maybe
Yeah.
I'm always like, I always have when women are making changes, it is hard. You want to be healed yesterday, right? It's
Mhm.
like, and I totally get that. And we see all this stuff online with people of like, oh, they got rid of this XY symptom in a month or, even like 2 months. And I'm always like so weary of things like that because I'm like, our hormones take at least 3 to 4 months to see a shift in. So if you have hormone concerns, yes, you could definitely see some improvements before that time frame, but you're not going to see like true healing until you're probably at that 4 to 6 month mark. And I think that can be a really good timeline to have for yourself too, especially with the circadian stuff. Cause I'll have people that are like, oh, I tried it and it didn't work. I'm like, ma'am, you don't try circadian. It's like, it's just how your body's designed to live is like mostly with natural light and being mindful with your blue light exposure. It's not
Mhm.
like something you do or don't do because it didn't fix all your problems. It's like, it's just how your body's designed to be. So it's not another trend. I do want to say, and it's more that we really want to give it more time. We just live in this world where we want everything so fast. And if you could tell yourself, okay, I'm going to spend the next 6 months really focusing on these things, that's when the people that I work with, they see the most success. They're like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, like I just really had to be patient. And it can be hard, but that's why it's good to like, you could track things if you want. I mean, look at your symptoms. That's why I love, like, I think everyone should, whether you're going to take birth control or not, you should learn about your cycle and the different phases of your cycle and pay attention to like what symptoms pop up for you, because that's really what you're going to see the change in. It's like a report card. I think Laura Bryden said that. It's like your cycle is like a report card for you. And I think it's so much valuable information. That's another reason why I'm like, oh, I don't think if someone wants to use hormonal birth control, that's your choice. And it might be the right choice for you right now. And I don't think enough people say that. People are just like, it's the worst thing ever and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't regret using it.
Yeah.
Like it worked for me when I needed it to. But I just really wish that we were taught these things younger, because even if you're not using it for trying to like conceive or not conceive, you're using it to understand your health. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that we can all learn from that.
For sure. And I know one thing that you're really big on is like we need to test, not guess when it comes to things. And that's another way that you can see um if maybe like trying all these different things is working on your body. Can you explain a little bit? I know you really like hair mineral testing. Can you explain how you came across that, what that is, how that helps people?
Yeah, because everyone's like, oh, I'll test my hormones, right? And I'm like, please don't waste your money on testing your hormones in the beginning. It's just like,
Yeah.
you could probably guess what your hormone test is going to look like based on your symptoms. I'm like, track your cycle, use fertility awareness or whatever you want to use, but pay attention to your cycle. I came across hair testing. I was already in the functional medicine space, and I still like, I saw so many improvements in my health when I stopped training like a crazy person. And I also, I mean, I graduated from college. That helped a lot, right? I feel like people just so much less stress, which is so funny because that's really when all the stress begins. But I had made a lot of shifts, and I was like, okay, learning about my cycle, really trying to eat enough, understand that. I did all the possible functional health trends that I could have done in the past. Paleo, low carb, keto, I did carnivore before it was cool, like all the things, right? And I just like to experiment. I think it's so cool to you need to know for yourself. And because anything I share, it may not work for someone. So I experimented a ton and I did all these, all the lab testing, all the functional protocols. I'm like, man, I'm still like, as soon as I would stop, like I did a lot of gut protocols. My gut health was definitely a huge part of my acne for sure. And so I was really trying to clear my acne. And so I was like, okay, I definitely had heavy painful periods, but they gotten a lot better. So I'm like, my main focus was my skin. So every time I would stop the gut supplements, like my skin would get really bad again. My periods would get worse, cramps would get worse. And I was more symptomatic. And I'm like, why is nothing sticking? Like, how come I'm doing all these things like over and over? And as soon as I stop, it's just like gone. And that's when one of my mentors, he was like a friend, but he had been doing this stuff a lot longer. So I looked at him more as like a mentor and he's like, why don't you do hair testing? I'm like, that sounds like the fakest thing ever. Right. I'm like, but he sent me research articles on it. He's like, I've been using this forever with my clients. It's the cheapest way you can test. It gives you the most information. He's like, and I think you have copper issues. And I was like, all right, fine. So I did a hair test. My results were all my symptoms to a T. Because a lot of my blood work was normal. My hormones looked fine. My estrogen was a little higher than progesterone, but it's like, there was nothing that gave me any information on what I should do. And I think that's what I love so much about hair testing is I got the results, it matched it with my symptoms, and then it was like, here's what you can do about it. Here's the imbalances that are present. Here's how we can correct these through nutrition, a lot of lifestyle. And that's the not fun part about minerals, right? People want to just take supplements and be like, it's fixed. But your hair test results just don't lie. Like your mineral pattern, I had really high calcium. I had what's called a calcium shell. And so that's like when your body's been under chronic stress for a really long time, or you have one really big traumatic event or something, then that it just slows everything down. It shuts you down. It really kind of like makes you like apathetic, shuts down your emotions and stuff.
When you say trauma, like traumatic event, what do you mean by that?
I mean, everyone's body reacts differently to different events. So it doesn't have to be, I just think like I've had clients that they've had calcium shells and they're like, yeah, well, I got in a really bad car accident like 6 months ago or something. Or maybe they had a very unstable and stressful childhood. So they've kind of been in fight or flight their whole lives. I see a lot of calcium shells with that because they're just, your body literally makes a shell. So calcium is very high and it forms this shell around your cells and it's literally trying to protect you. Again, like the body's just so cool. So it's not great because it doesn't make you feel well, but it basically impairs thyroid hormone from getting inside the cell, slows down your metabolism a lot. And of course, that's going to affect your hormones, right? So it made sense that my estrogen was still so high. But I also had very high copper. And that was a huge one for me. It's very common with the pill that it can raise copper levels. And I had the copper IUD. At the time, I still had it in. I will say I have never seen high copper just from the IUD. And I know that that's people's thing with the copper IUD. It causes copper toxicity. I think it creates a ton of inflammation in the body, specifically the uterus. I mean, that's literally part of how it prevents pregnancy is the amount of inflammation that's present. And then the copper ions like against the sperm. But the pill is what I see the most high copper from. And so my copper was super high. My vitamin A levels were very low. That I did blood work for that because he's like, I think your copper is going to be high, so we need to see this too. So hair is great. It's not everything, but I was like, okay, my vitamin A was super low. And that's really what created that big imbalance. And so as copper goes up, estrogen goes up. And so I think that for me, that was a huge part of my estrogen dominance and my hypothyroidism because I had tried taking thyroid meds, but I felt awful. I felt absolutely terrible on them. I already had hair loss and they made my hair like fall out more. And I was like, whoa, I thought that this was supposed to make my hair grow. It was the worst. And again, this is during a time when there's no social media that you're going on. There's no one's like writing articles or anything about this. There's YouTube. They're not talking about this stuff on YouTube. It's like, there's no podcast. It was just like, I very much had to go to my doctor, have them tell me to take a pill, fix it, or that it's not from the levothyroxine. I was like, it's the only thing I changed. Like, what else could it be from? And so then I gave it a little bit of time, but then I stopped it because I was like, this is terrible, but I still didn't feel good. So for me, minerals were my piece of the puzzle with, like, it wasn't that my body wasn't just not making enough thyroid hormone, it wasn't using it. And that's really what the hair test shows us. And then my copper imbalances were a huge part of what was driving up my estrogen. And so to fix those things, I had to really work on my stress, which was like, okay, I have to be even more diligent. Am I eating enough? At that point, I was like, I just had a much better relationship with my body, and having the understanding of how much undereating affects your health and stuff and the nervous system, it was like that wasn't a huge concern. But looking at my stress in other areas was, because with copper imbalances, you can't just take vitamin A and like vitamin C and taurine, like those help. But if your adrenals are exhausted and super stressed, you're not going to make copper bioavailable like it's supposed to. Same thing with having enough thyroid hormone. So for me, it was a lot of like really looking at my life and how I was living. Why am I in fight or flight all day? And how can I get out of that? And I'm so happy because that really translated to the rest of my life. And it was a good skill to learn. Obviously, I feel like everyone is still working on that every single day for the most part. But it was a huge eye opener and really showed me not just what, but like how do I fix this?
Yeah, that's what I really appreciate about your account is that like I find about a lot of like functional medicine practitioners where it's just like, okay, it's like I don't want to like give you every pill for every ill, but now it's like let me give you every supplement for every ill. And I'm like, that's a lot of money for people to be spending a ton of
Yeah.
supplements on, and that's not even food in the first place, which like is what we had at the beginning of time that nourished our bodies. So I appreciate the fact that like you and then also the like hair mineral test gives you that like ability to be like, what food should I go
Mm-hmm.
after, what nutrients do I need? And I feel like it also shifts that perspective, or at least it did for me, because I did come from like an under eating background as well, where it allowed me to make that transition of like, I don't have to just look at how my body looks. I get to look at how am I fueling my body and what like this nutrients is going to give me energy. This nutrients is going to help me heal. And I feel like that test allows you to do that.
Yeah, and then if you do want to take supplements, because the thing with supplements is like there's a time and a place. I personally, I mean, I've had 2 children in a short period. I benefited very greatly from them. I had a hard time getting pregnant with my first. Iodine was like one of the biggest shifts for me. Again, my thyroid history, right? Should have known that. But that like, so I'm not against them. I mean, we get people coming to us and they're just taking these like generic supplements that it's like from people that they do trust online, which is, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I have plenty of people that are like this. I felt so much better taking this. I'm like, you don't have to stop then. But based on your labs and everything we know, I'm very much like, what is absolutely necessary to take. And there should really be a time of like, okay, are you in a healing protocol right now where we're trying to target specific imbalances and we're going to take supplements? Or are you kind of in more of a maintenance phase? Because that really shouldn't be more than a few supplements for maintenance, right? But in a healing protocol, maybe there's more. So, but people don't have a delineation. It's more just like, oh, I need this, all these supplements, like these 10 supplements all the time, because this is what's recommended. And it's one of the things that's funny because either people, they're like, I can't handle taking a lot of supplements. And I'm like, easy, fine, no problem. Or they're like, they want more. We pare down all their supplements and like I feel like I'm not doing enough. And I'm like, supplements is not doing something, it's taking something. So if you want to do something, then why don't we hone in on another area of your life? Because supplements are easy. Personally, I think it's easy to just take a supplement for something, right? But usually the hardest thing to work on is how you're living. And like it's usually people that like they don't want to make the circadian rhythm changes. They're like, well, I don't have the capacity to make any changes to my food, which I understand. We've all been there when our capacity is just very low because our bodies are under so much stress and our nervous systems are so usually just like wound up or depleted, so they're not functioning properly. So yes, that makes sense. But I'm also like, then throwing more supplements in is not going to help. It's usually going to stimulate you more. And most people need like less. Just it kind of depends on what they have going on. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, they have a place, but they're not everything. And you can make so much progress without taking anything.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's relieving, especially as like a student being like, I don't have much money.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like, and having this feeling of like, I have to take all these supplements to then heal or like continue to take those forever. That's really overwhelming. And then not only adding on to the stress piece even more of like, then probably my nervous system is very much like, ah, and like can't calm down from that.
100%.
So it's like very easing to be like, I don't need all of this.
And if you're not doing the basics, if you're not eating enough, if you're not getting good light exposure, if you're super stressed all the time, I would not spend money on supplements
Yeah.
because you'll get so much more out of them when you already have a good foundation. And
Mhm.
that's even like with our one-on-one clients, like they come to us, they're taking a bunch of supplements, they don't have their foundations in place, and then they want to do testing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we have to tell you that you have to really work on that foundation or it's going to be hard to see the amount of progress that we know that you could see.
Yeah. No, that's good. We've talked a lot about stress within this podcast, and like there still sometimes when someone tells me like, Becca, you need to like decrease your stress, I'm like, ugh.
I
But like
know. As a
in like a
mom and a
work,
business owner, I feel that in my soul.
yeah. And like this is something that I struggle with a lot is like in a world where we're like go go go, but then I'm also struggling with like hormone imbalances and stuff like that, but I'm also a very ambitious person.
Mm.
Yet I know I need to decrease my stress. How did you make it work, and how do you think other people can like actually support their bodies and like not just say like, "Oh, go take a bubble bath." You
Yeah.
know?
It's
Yeah.
yeah, because and half the time that might not even be an option for someone. Like if someone
Yeah.
told me that, I'd be like, yeah, great, my kids will come right in the tub, you know? But I think the way that I think about it, because I'm very ambitious and I always say having kids was like the healthiest thing I've ever done for myself because I can't work 24/7 anymore. And I had to actually stop doing that so that I could conceive. That was a huge part of my fertility journey is I think I always look at my day and I'm like, how much can I realistically get done? Because that does not like that's just honest, right? There's no like workaround for that. And so because it's everyone's going to be different too. So that's usually where I start is like how much can I realistically get done? How much am I trying to cram into a day? And do those match up? Usually they don't.
Mhm.
And that the next step from there is going to vary depending on your circumstances because sometimes it's like well, it's a work project and I'm like, I kind of have to get it done. You know, so what's that going to look like? Am I going to stay up and work after everyone goes to bed tonight? Okay, but that's going to empty my reserves for the next day. So got to keep that in mind. And sometimes that's fine, right? But then eventually your reserves are going to completely be depleted. And then that's really when you're like trying to cash checks that your body can't pay. And that's when your health gets affected. So I think it's just being so realistic and being okay with doing less or having it being like this is going to be more in the future. That was like a really big lesson I had to learn, especially when I had my first daughter and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do all like the projects and stuff that I want to do like I used to do. And because I'm like have this inability to be away from my children, I'm like, is this like a disease? This is like I'm like, why can't I just can't. It's like a problem. So I'm in therapy, guys, don't worry. But I'm working on it. But it's like that is so huge and so important. And so for me, I'm like, I don't want to spend too much time away from my kids. So I have like a work block each day. But then I'm like, can I fit all this in there? And sometimes it doesn't fit. And so I had to really reevaluate, okay, well, what are my goals? Obviously, like I have to pay my bills and stuff. So like that's a huge, that's like a huge part of it. And I know so many women that are like working full time and then on top of that, sometimes they're like trying to start their own business or have like side projects that they love and they have kids and it's like there's just so much and I'm like you can't do it forever. You're going to run out of reserves. So I think and I mean being a student I'm like gosh, is it it's a season.
Yeah.
It's a season, right? I mean, it's like I think about my days were probably like 16 hours long. And that's not good, but it's like I didn't do it forever. And then it's thinking about, okay, on the weekends, how am I going to replenish, like when you do have time? But I would say that's the first thing to be very realistic about. And it doesn't mean you can't have goals, but maybe the timeline is further out so that you can get it done in a way where you're not going to kill yourself. And then, and just be, it's like, and then the other thing is like, why do I feel the need that I have to accomplish this much? Like, where is this coming from? And because I'm like, I built a big business very quickly. I mean, I don't know. To me, like 5 years is very quick. I think for like a startup and stuff. And it just kind of flowed and worked. But I was literally working around the clock. And because it's like I get an idea and I'm like, I have to do it. I have to make it right now. It's like burning a hole inside me.
Yeah.
But after lots of like therapy and stuff on that, it's like, well, that's not like a normal person thing. So like what need am I trying to fulfill right now? And like, how can I meet that some other way? Like what void, things like that. And so sometimes I think that's a really good thing to consider. Obviously, I'm not a therapist, but it can, because sometimes you can think, well, I can't do that. That's not the kind of person that I am. But it's like, why? Because it's probably not coming from the healthiest place. And that's not going to serve you either. And getting to know yourself, I think, is one of the best things you can do. And like what drives you to make decisions. Where is this coming from? Especially like I think a lot of your audience is younger. Like if you can learn that now, guys, it will serve you in the future. And just getting curious of like, why do I feel this need to do all this stuff? That can be helpful. And then the other one is how I'm living. So am I always on my phone? Because that's very stimulating. It also makes everything take longer and then you don't get as much done. So I'm like, if everyone just put their phones away, they'd probably be a lot more productive and less stressed. Am I always available to people? Whether that's like through work, personal life. Like I have put up a lot of boundaries in my life that I wish I did a long time ago, because it's not normal for us to take in all these thoughts and information from like thousands of other people, depending on how many people you follow online. And then in like podcasts you listen to and emails you read. And then also being like, we expect everyone like, oh, they text me, I gotta text them back. It's like, no. And maybe you guys aren't like that, but I was definitely like that when I was younger. It kind of goes away after you have children, or even when I just got super busy with work, I was like, man, I haven't returned these texts for like a month, and like, that's not great either. But it's like having a balance of like, I am not always available. You deserve to have a peaceful life and to not always be stressed out and doing 80 different things at a time. And we don't see it a lot. Or if I don't know, I see that kind of stuff online. I'm like, this is so fake. Why are you filming it then if it's so peaceful, because peaceful to me is like, there's nothing peaceful that I'm putting online, because if I have my phone out, it's probably not like a super peaceful time. So I think like having really big boundaries with your phone. How are you living? Are you rushing? Do you wait? And this is also a nervous system thing where you're like late everywhere. You're kind of like doing stuff last minute, or you like could have gotten there on time, but you like do something else instead. Now you're late. That's like usually you're looking for that cortisol rush. So just, again, learning about yourself. What are your habits? How are you living? Are you always on your phone all day? What boundaries can you put in place? Is your day-to-day realistic? Like having a to-do list that's a mile long is so stressful, right? So make it realistic. Put like your must-dos and then can-dos. I'm just thinking of like when I was in school and stuff and working, and it's like you just can only do so much. So and like sometimes, and I was going to like clinical rotations and everything, I had no life. Like everyone's like, I loved college, it was so fun. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I had zero life in college. I like went to class, studied, worked out, and like cooked. That was really it. So it just, it's a season, you're going to get through it. But then also like having those habits, like getting the morning light, really being mindful with your blue light, especially if you're up late doing a project or writing a paper or something, put your blue blockers on. There's cheap ones you can get on Amazon that do work. People try to tell you that they don't work, but they do. You don't have to buy the $300 blue blockers. And like getting salt lamps. Like I just think of like, I had all my bright lights on, my computer, I'm like on my phone. I'm like, man, if I could do it all over again, I probably could have saved my body a lot of stress. But you don't know. But having those little habits in place and those foundational things, they may seem small, but like that's what makes a difference. And then you have that. And then when you're out of this harder season, then you can really reap all the benefits.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I got all my Himalayan salt lamps that I can get around like my desk in my room. Yeah, I'm like, I can't wait until I have my own place and they can literally be everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Or
Yeah,
the circadian bulbs, although they're very bright.
yeah,
So they're very bright because we moved, so I don't, and I left them in the old house. So I was like, this is my gift to the family that moves in because it's like near a military base. I'm like, this is my gift to the military family that moves here. Hopefully they learn about circadian health when they see these weird bulbs. But they're so bright. So even like the morning ones, it's supposed to be similar to like the orangey sunrise time. But I'm like, it's so bright that I'd almost rather just have the salt lamp on because
yeah.
I feel like it's not as stimulating, but so funny.
For sure. Yeah. And I'm curious what your thoughts are because this is something I debate back and forth in my head because, like, I eventually want to open up, like, my own business or, like, maybe do a side thing while I'm working for someone else. Do you think that you can heal but also be successful in business at the same time?
I do. It's just slow. It's a
Mm.
slower pace because so I have two children now. My husband literally yesterday was his last day in the military, guys. Oh
Wow.
my God. Like I cannot tell you. You want to be stressed, have your spouse join the military. But like so I've been like I don't have a nanny, I don't have childcare, I don't have family near me, and I am a psycho because I pick my hard, right?
Mm.
I think we all kind of pick our hard, and my hard is like trying to work at home with my kids and then staying up late after they go to bed, and doing that pretty much by myself most of the time. And like that was a very stressful season, but I still grew my business. I just did it slower. It was so much slower, and like for me, it's like painful because you're like, but I have done this before, and I know how it can work. But I also know my boundaries and my capacity now, and there's just so much more to life than having a business. Like I just look back and it can be really hard, but it's like if you do it slower, then it's less stressful. You usually make less mistakes, which is probably good. But also it's very important to make mistakes when you're growing, obviously. And then I've seen, I think it's a personality thing, but I also think it's like why, like why I think I just like really wanted to like be important and improve myself with all my like childhood stuff. And now I'm most successful of the three. So I'm like, do I win? You don't get an award. You just get health issues, right? So it's like you just have to know your why. I think if your purpose is really good and it is coming from a really good place, I also think it's like have your timeline. Like I knew I wanted to have kids and I'm like I'm not going to be able to leave them and like send them to daycare. So I'm like, well, I got to figure this out before we have kids. So we waited so that we could like afford it and then I could finagle stuff in my business. But it's like if you don't have a timeline and then do it slower than you think you need to, it's not going to happen overnight. And I think now it's like I would have gotten help sooner, which I know in the beginning you're like, I can't afford to pay anyone else, but you can get a really inexpensive VA. I've only worked with people in the US even when I couldn't afford much. And I had people that were like, I can figure out how many hours I can do for you, so it's like it's much more doable. And I think in the beginning you think it all has to be you, but it doesn't, and they're worth the investment, especially if you're trying to balance your health and your life at the same time. But I also think it's okay to have seasons that are hard because even once you do like have a successful business, it's like you build a beast and no matter what, you have to manage it. And so it's like everyone's like, oh, it's great you have people that work for you. I'm like, yes, but now I have people that work for me. So I have to make sure it's like we're always getting clients that are coming in. Like
Yeah.
now I have these women that are literally depending on me for their job and their income. It's a lot no matter how you do it. And I think the other thing is to like ignore everyone. I know that there's a lot of business coaches out there. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if this could be bad, but I think it's a very big waste of money until you really, really understand yourself and what you want for your business. Because one, there's a lot of bad coaches. And this is coming from someone that tried to spend a lot of money on that kind of stuff because I felt like I had to like grow my business. But if I had listened to one of my business coaches, I never would have made my Master Your Minerals course, which completely changed my business and my life. So I think about that, but I went with my gut because you just have to so understand like your own intuition. I would also like stop following up, like don't follow anyone in your space and spend so much time like thinking about your own thoughts because it's so noisy. And I think the most discouraging thing when you're growing your business is seeing all these other people and you're like, wow, they have such a unique message. Or like, I kind of thought about talking about that, but now I'm scared to talk about it because I don't want them to think I'm like copying them or like, and a lot of times we're getting similar thoughts because we're taking in the same information. So it's like, you just got to make it so unique and so you that it like, you're never going to feel that way. But don't spend money on business coaches, especially before you start making money, because you don't need a business coach to grow your business. You just need to figure out one thing that you're really good at that you've done for yourself, do it for some other people, have the proof and the passion behind it, and then do it in a way that works for you. Don't do it in a way that you think you have to. Because I think that's like, I've had a lot of friends like, I'm going to make a course, but I just like don't really know. I'm like, are you making it because you want to or because you feel like you should? Because there's usually some other way to kind of reach the goal that you have. But
Yeah. Oh, that's all really good. I have one final question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to a woman who's feeling overwhelmed with like having PCOS or like some other like diagnosis, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that you just need a little bit of hope to heal. A little bit of hope that will shift your nervous system. It'll shift your immune system. It's going to shift how you take in information. And because if you can make choices from a place of like empowerment and having hope, they're going to have a way more positive impact on your health versus what I see the most of is women making choices from fear. They're doing, oh, I guess I have to do this or I have to do this program or protocol. Otherwise, I'm never going to get better or I'm not going to achieve XYZ goal. I think that's like the most toxic. It literally makes you sick, you know? So I would say just try to have a little bit of hope. And if something sounds like it clicks for you and it makes sense, do that. Don't do what you feel like you're like, oh, I should do this, or someone told me I need to do this because it worked for them. Like, we usually know. We ask that on our intake form. We ask our clients, what do you think is going on? Like, what do you think is at the root? What do you think maybe you're missing up until this point? And they're always right. They're always
Wow.
right. It's so
That,
funny. Like, it may not be like the only thing,
yeah.
but it's so helpful for us to know because I'm like, I'm not in your body. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not you. Like, only you really know. Sometimes they have a hard time answering because they're so stressed out that they can't really answer. But whenever people can, I'm like, wow, that's probably going to be a big part of the picture. And it almost always is.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being on the podcast. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Hormone Healing RD. I also have my podcast, so Hormone Healing RD podcast. It's anywhere podcasts are played. And then I have it on YouTube. It's just youtube.com/Hormone Healing RD. I think that's it.
Awesome. That'll be all in the show notes below. Thank you again, Amanda, for being on.
Thanks for having me. It was nice chatting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Becca Babbles podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, the best thing that you can do is leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other listening platform of your choosing. If you want to learn more about me, you can do that by following me on Instagram at Becca Ann Wellness or by checking out my blog, freebies, offers, and newsletter on my website at beccaannwellness.com. If you want to share the love of the podcast, you can do that by taking a screenshot and sharing it on social media and tagging me and the podcast at Becca Ann Wellness and using the hashtag Becca Babbles Podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to babble with you next time.